There is a very good chance that House of the Dragon has not shown us all of its dragons yet. And if Ryan Connell is telling the truth, Season 4 could still have a few surprises waiting in the shadows. Because after everything we've seen Vhagar, Caraxes, Sunfire, Vermithor, Silverwing, Dreamfire, and Sheepstealer, there are still legendary creatures from the Dance of the Dragons that have never properly appeared on screen. And one of them has a reputation so terrifying that even the dragon riders of House Targaryen wanted nothing to do with it. So before we talk about what happens next, let's look at the dragons that could turn Season 4 into something completely different. Season 3 ended with the Targaryen Civil War reaching a point of no return. Tumbleton burned, alliances collapsed, Aegon returned with Sunfire, and Rhaenyra became increasingly ruthless in her attempt to secure the throne. Helena's death pushed the story into even darker territory, while Daemon and Aemond remain on opposite sides of a war that has already destroyed much of their family. And now there's only one season left. HBO has confirmed Season 4 as the final chapter, with the season currently expected to arrive in 2028. That means the show no longer has time to slowly introduce dozens of new storylines. Every character, every battle, and every dragon has to serve the ending. But here's where things get interesting. Ryan Connell has already warned fans not to make assumptions about the dragons we will or won't see. When asked about the missing wild dragons, Grey Ghost, and the Cannibal, he essentially left the door open, saying there are still more dragon cards to turn over. He did not confirm either dragon's appearance, but he made one thing clear. We shouldn't assume the dragon roster is finished. And that brings us to the first major mystery. Grey Ghost is almost the complete opposite of Vhagar. He's not famous for destroying armies. He's famous for avoiding people. In Fire and Blood, Grey Ghost is a wild dragon associated with Dragonstone. He prefers fish, keeps away from humans, and is never successfully claimed by a rider. That's exactly why his possible appearance in Season 4 would be interesting. The show doesn't need Grey Ghost to become another Vhagar. In fact, it would be more interesting if he remained mysterious. A glimpse flying over Dragonstone, a shadow in the distance, a character mentioning that something is living on the island. The series has already shown that not every dragon needs to behave like a weapon. And then there's the dragon that is much harder to ignore. The Cannibal is one of the most infamous wild dragons in Fire and Blood. His name tells you almost everything you need to know. He's associated with Dragonstone and is known for attacking smaller dragons and feeding on dragon remains and eggs. Attempts to claim him are essentially suicidal. And unlike the Targaryen dragons, the Cannibal doesn't belong to anyone. That's what makes him fascinating. Every other major dragon in the series is connected to a political faction. Syrax represents Rhaenyra. Vhagar represents Aemond. Sunfire represents Aegon. Silverwing and Vermithor became weapons in the Civil War. But the Cannibal represents something else. A dragon completely outside the Targaryens' control. And if the show introduces him in Season 4, that could become an important thematic moment. The Targaryens spent generations believing that dragons were their greatest advantage. But the Cannibal would remind them that dragons were never truly theirs. They simply allowed humans to ride them. This is where we need to separate fact from speculation. Fans have identified several dragons from the book that have not received substantial on-screen appearances, and community discussions continue to debate which ones could still appear. But the show has already changed the source material in significant ways. Rhaenyra's storyline, the Dragon Seed plot, Aegon's journey, Helena's ending, and several major battles have all been altered or rearranged. So we shouldn't assume that every dragon in Fire and Blood is automatically coming to HBO. Some could appear, some could remain unseen, and some could be combined with existing storylines. That's why the Cannibal and Grey Ghost are so intriguing. Their appearance isn't confirmed, but unlike completely invented theories, they actually have a foundation in the source material. Why would Season 4 even need more dragons? Because the final season isn't simply about adding spectacle. It's about showing the consequences of the Targaryens' obsession with dragons. For 3 seasons, dragons have been the ultimate symbol of power. Whoever controls them can threaten armies, castles, and entire kingdoms. But the dance slowly turns that advantage into a curse. Dragons kill dragons. Dragon riders betray dragon riders. And eventually, the people of Westeros begin to realize that the creatures protecting the Targaryen dynasty are also the creatures destroying their world. That's why the dragon pit becomes so important in the source material. The most terrifying moment isn't necessarily another dragon fighting another dragon. It could be ordinary people deciding that the dragons have to die, and that would completely reverse the power dynamic. For generations, the Targaryens looked down from the backs of dragons. In the final chapter, the people could finally look back. So when Season 4 arrives, don't just watch the Iron Throne. Watch the skies. Watch Dragonstone. Watch the shadows. Because if Ryan Condal's comments mean what they seem to mean, there may still be a few dragon cards left to play. And the most interesting one could be the Cannibal. A dragon with no rider, no allegiance, and no reason to care who wins the dance. Because in the end, that's the perfect symbol for House Targaryen. They believed they controlled the dragons, but perhaps they were only borrowing their power. And when the final season ends, the biggest question may not be who sits on the Iron Throne. It may be, which dragons are still alive when the war is finally over? So which one do you want to see in season for the Cannibal, Grey Ghost, or another dragon we haven't properly seen yet? Because the final season may have one last surprise waiting above Dragonstone.